Hi guys, this is Brian Sykes with the AI Lab. I want to talk about something I'm going to call the conversation is the value. So I saw something recently that got me thinking, and I want to talk to you about it because I think it touches on something really human. My wife and I discussed this yesterday at length. So something we're all doing right now with AI, and we haven't really stopped to think about what it is that we're doing. And not that this is a bad thing. Let me backtrack just a little bit. So, Claude, the AI platform, has a page on their website, and it's called Switch to Claude Without Starting Over. Okay, this is brilliant actually. It's structured walkthrough showing you how to grab all those remnants of conversations that you've had with ChatGPT, with Gemini, with Perplexity, with Grok, etc. Whatever you've been using, and import them into Claude. So you can bring your conversation history with you. This is a little bit of a misnomer, but as far as people in general are concerned, it feels completely legitimate and reasonable. And it is, but here's the thing, is those conversations are not the full conversation. It's not like a copy paste of the entire thing. It's more like the summary version that the AI has put together and basically said, I want to take from this entire conversation what I think are the key points and make it the core thought. And that's what we're going to hold into memory. So when you're asking the AI with this prompt that Claude has generated for you to go in and extract the conversations, it's only taking a piece. Okay, so when I first saw this, my immediate reaction was, oh, that's smart. That's going to be helpful, because I have conversations spread across all these platforms going back months and years in some cases. But then I started thinking about why this feels helpful. So why does the idea of preserving those conversations feel important? And that's when I realized this touches on something very human. It's the fear of waste. Those conversations were meaningful, they were impactful, they resulted in something that I found valuable at the time, and the thought of losing them feels wrong. Like I'm throwing away work, like I'm throwing away insights. This is the same reason that you saved, I don't know, how many Instagram Reels, TikToks, YouTube videos, emails that you've received that seemed interesting or had some tidbit that you thought was valuable, Substack articles that you've bookmarked, even bits of mail, books on the shelf. How many of these things have you held on to because there was something to it, some weight behind it that's felt valuable, and you don't want to get rid of it? And here's the thing I want you to be honest about. When was the last time that you went back and actually watched those saved reels, reread those emails that you thought would be valuable for some piece of information in the future, reviewed those bookmarked articles, grabbed the book off the shelf and picked it out again? Some of those we'll actually pull up and use them with some frequency, but most of these we don't revisit them. We just hold on to them because there was returnable value there, or we felt like there was, and the idea of losing that potential feels like waste. So now we're doing the same thing with AI conversations. We're preserving them, importing them, making sure we don't lose them. But here's the question I want to explore with you. What exactly are we preserving? Because when you import your conversation history into Claude or any large language model with memory, what it actually saves is not the conversation. As I pointed out a second ago, it's just the summary, a compressed version, a memory about the conversation. But what actually happened in that conversation? Let me give you an example. Let's say you're talking with AI about website design. You started asking about layout options, clean, modern aesthetics, and somewhere in that conversation, you went off on a tangent. I don't know, maybe about your grandma's kitchen, how it had the warm, lived-in feeling, yellow walls, wooden counters, and the AI asked you why that came up. And you realized mid-conversation, that's why you hate stark white interfaces. They feel cold to you, sterile, the opposite of that kitchen. And maybe the AI pushed back a little, asked if that's just nostalgia talking, and you had to think about it, defend it, refine it. And by the end of that conversation, you had a design philosophy and that you didn't have before. The memory that gets saved, user prefers warm color palette and minimalist design. That's it, just the tombstone. The memory is a tombstone marking where something happened. It's not the thing itself. And here's what's kind of wild about this. I'm writing this, actually conversing about this exact process I'm describing. I had this rough idea, this rough form thought about the Claude import feature. And I sat down with Claude, the AI, and I just rambled. I said, quotation marks, I think this is about something human. The fear of waste. There was more to it. I said, do you see where I'm going with this? And Claude restated what I said to it back to me and helped me refine my thoughts. It created clear connections, found new leverage in a rough idea to develop a more polished one. The real value in the conversation wasn't the final output, that piece that would be saved by AI, but rather it was the conversation itself, the back and forth, the wait, I think I mean statements that I began to put together new concepts in my own mind. Those moments, the tangent, the friction. When this conversation gets compressed into a memory, it'll say something like user explored, paradox of AI, conversation preservation. And it misses the whole nuance of how I got there. See, that's where the strength of conversation is. And that memory, it'll technically be completely useless to capture what actually happened, what went on inside of my mind. The summary does little for the user. So here's what I think is really going on. I've spent my whole life being proud of this, the library in my head. I've been an avid reader since I learned to read. Going back to childhood, I can go through all the many books that I've read over my lifetime, and I house volumes of interesting random facts about a wide range of subjects. I've celebrated that about myself. It's something I actually appreciate about Brian. It's one of the things that makes me a teacher is I like to take the things that's here, put them in my own words, and share them with other people. But with the age of AI, even that is somewhat mitigated now. The large language model can do the same thing, access facts and make connections, but here's the difference. The human ramble, those tangential connections, the wait, that reminds me of moments, the inefficient but generative wandering through ideas. That's where synthesis happens. That's where you connect the dot pattern in Renaissance art to something you read about network theory or to a conversation you had last week about urban planning. The large language models don't naturally do that. Not because they can't, but because, number one, it's computationally expensive. Every tangent, all those variables, cost tokens. And that's not what the large language model is programmed to do. Two, users would complain, just answer my question. We go and do a Google search, not because we're looking necessarily for a deep dive, but because we're trying to get a result. I grew up in the age of libraries being the main way you got to information, and you'd go on these long searches for insight, to dig through books, to come up with concepts. And that framing, that effort was part of the creative process of learning to get the result, but that learning process in itself is part of the most valuable piece that gets bypassed by the large language model. The third thing is the business model punishes us wondering. So get to the answer faster, save time, save money. Okay, but that wondering, that's exactly what made my personal library valuable. Not because I stored facts, but because my brain formed weird, non-obvious connections between them while I was thinking about something else entirely. And I think that's what we're missing when we try to preserve AI conversations. We're preserving the conclusions, but we're losing the collision. The thing worth preserving in a large language model conversation is precisely the thing that can't be preserved. The generative friction of two intelligence, one human, one artificial, working through something together in real time. The human aspect isn't just part of the value. It is the only value. Everything else is just receipts. So, should you import your conversation memories to Claude or any other large language model that you're working with? Sure. Should you switch platforms? Preserve your conversation history? Why not? But recognize what you're actually doing. You're keeping tombstones. You're making bookmarks, markers of where something meaningful happened. The real value already happened, and maybe that's okay. Maybe the point isn't to preserve the insight. Maybe the point is to keep having the conversations, to keep wondering, to keep colliding with ideas, human or artificial, and seeing what emerges. Because the conversation is the value. This is Brian Sykes, the AI Lab.